Okay, our final speaker today is an older gentleman who was one of the founding fathers. He is now 289 years old, so he's going to be assisted by Tom Navulis. Tom has been engaged in the political arena for over 30 years. During this journey, he has studied the founding of the United States and her historical beginning. While on active duty in the military, Tom began detailed study of the Constitution as originally established and then as amended. He has read many original documents written by the founders of the nation. He has found that much of what is written in modern history is not what the founders of America said or intended. The most incredible discovery was that the original founders never called for a separation of church and state. They did not want a government-run religion. Tom has been interested in Samuel Adams about 10 years when he first studied the firebrand of the Revolution. Tom and Mr. Adams have many things in common. Their common perspective on Christianity, their love of the country, their desire for truth and liberty, and the desire to ensure that the country would sustain a path that would honor those who set the course for the Republic. Tom brings his alter ego to life through Samuel Adams. Tom speaks the words of Samuel Adams, since the great writer and political mind experienced every nuance of what affects personal, business, and economic and political life. Known as the father of the revolution, Samuel Adams returns to stir the minds and hearts to the founders' reasons and purposes for self-governance. Samuel Adams said, "It does not require a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen to set brushfires in people's minds." We the people must be reminded of the truth of the founders' experience in defining our republic. We must hear their words and know the situation of their time was not only then, but for now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Samuel Adams. He'll speak today on igniting the flames of liberty.
Hello, my friends, my fellow patriots. As you've heard, I will be 289 years old on September 16th of this year. Interestingly enough, is that in, what was it, 1787, our Constitution came together at that period of time. Now you wonder, why am I standing here before you this day? You see, I was sitting with the rest of those noble pillars that brought forth this great nation. And as we sat around and listened to what was happening, and as I heard again today, sitting in the back, we wept, we cried, we looked at one another and said, what has happened with that destiny that we gave to our posterity? What happened to that which we desired to grow and nurture? And we wept. And they looked at me and they said, you, Samuel Adams, were that firebrand. You, sir, were the one that stirred to ignite those fires. You need to go back. You need to light those fires again and talk about what is it that drove liberty forward. One of the things you need to understand is that I did live through banking crisis. You see, my father started a land bank. And at that time, it was a new way of taking and bringing people together to understand how they could take and utilize their property to take and farm better, to take and build commerce better. But a government 3,000 miles away decided that that was not what would be to happen. And because of the wars that they were engaged in on the continent, they came and shut that bank down, and it put us into great despair financially. You see, I understand banking crisis. I understand commerce. One of the things that my father left to me was a maltier. Now, I'm encouraged greatly that I understand in the 21st century that my namesake produces a very good brew, and that many of you may enjoy it. Well, in my day, it was different. There were many that wouldn't even stand that close to me because I had this odoriferousness about me. But it wasn't just the idea of malt being on me, it was the idea of liberty being on me. For when I spoke at my graduation from Harvard with my master's degree, I did so in front of all of the leading officials, and I challenged as to when would be the right time to stand against that government that was before us. And the governor that day looked and said, we must watch this Samuel Adams. We must pay attention to him. Because inside of me, liberty was a fire. My mother wanted me to be a preacher. That was a noble profession. But instead, I studied the Constitution of my day. I studied those that helped bring that together and frame that. And it was always liberty. It was always that which understood as property. That's what Mr. Jefferson wrote about as happiness. You see, your property isn't just the land that you walk on. Your property is your intellectual knowledge. Your property is that which you take and you produce with your hand. That you trade in commerce with others. Your property is that coinage that gets into your pocket, and we were standing against the government that was taking it away from us. It wasn't just about taxation without representation. It was the egregiousness that they then came upon us and started putting on our commerce. We couldn't buy from other nations. We only had to buy from England. We only could take and allow that to come into our harbors that they put a tariff on. And it rose the price of everything that we had. So anything that would come from any other nation, we could not engage in. It tied our hands. We understood commerce, which led to what was liberty. What does that mean? What was that choice that we had? And then they tried to pressure us on our religion and the freedom that we wanted. And that's why the Pilgrims came. That's why many came to America, was for that religious liberty. What allowed us to take and come together to the degree that we did was we coalesced because of what was called the First Great Awakening. It was a religious movement of many preachers that would come and look and see and allowed us to understand that first off, our only king was King Jesus. You see, I was called the last Puritan, and it was because I had that formation of that truth, of the biblical reality, as then flowed through the rest of the colonies. So as I heard this young man talk just a moment ago about what united us as a nation after this tragic time of an attack, we never saw that. We never hoped for that. We never intended that to come that way. We fought those wars on our land, that revolution. We saw that come again after I passed in 1803, when England attacked us again at a vulnerable time during the War of the 1800s. We saw it again in the destruction of our own nation and the tearing apart in that great Civil War. But you know what? What brought us together always was that faith in God and that understanding of what it meant to coalesce as a people. And then it allowed us to drive forward with the whole liberty message, because once you understand that liberty that comes from God and what that means for all that is ours in the property and that He gives us our rights, then we can come together and stand against any nation, any foreign power. And what just is interesting to me is that now those that we see and I'm listening to are hearing that many foreign nations are taking and attacking sovereignty. Your individual sovereignty, your community sovereignty, your state sovereignty, and ultimately your national sovereignty through international activities, through someone imposing on you how things are to be planned, how you are to use your water, to grow your crops. I understand that you can no longer collect the rain to use on your gardens. It's illegal to do. My goodness gracious, that's what we always did. But yet, this is what I heard from others, that this, what is it? An agenda? There's always been an agenda, and it is the root of evil from that evil one. So you need to understand that. As much as this is a war over liberties, it is a war of the Spirit.